Hey guys, Ashley Bratzel here. This is my overlay mosaic crochet support video for the Paw Purse CAL. If you'd prefer to use interlocking crochet, check out my other video. If you're new to the overlay mosaic crochet technique, try my other videos first, okay? So this little bag is a free crochet along available on my website, or there's a paid PDF available which includes charts. I'll drop the link in the description. And this video is going to go over the first part, the foundation rows, the setup, and how to work in the round, some tips. So part 2 is going to go over the finishing touches, such as the optional button and the straps. Both techniques can be done using whichever weight yarn you prefer. So this one is fingering weight sample. These ones I've both used cotton because I think cotton works better for a bag, but it's up to you. It really works with anything, right? And fingering weight is going to be a smaller bag. Worsted weight yarn is a larger bag, so you can see a bit of the size difference there. It doesn't matter which technique you use. They're both written up to be worked in the round, fully written, and we will get started here. Let's go over the supplies you'll need to make the paw purse. You're going to need scissors and some sort of stitch markers, usually pretty handy. You'll also need a needle to weave in your ends, but also to possibly put on a button if you want a button. Now, depending on what kind of button you use, you may need a smaller needle. This needle is way too thick. It wouldn't even go through there, so I had to use a different needle. You'll also have to decide which yarn weight you want to use. I have written up the gauge yardage for 2 options, but you can use whatever you'd like. This information is also available in the written pattern, but I'm putting it in the video. You can use the timestamps and skip this if it's too boring. This here is showing you the size difference between a fingering weight yarn, which is a 1 or a fine weight, and a worsted weight yarn, which is a 4 or a medium weight. Whether you use interlocking crochet or overlay mosaic crochet, the sizes are almost the same. So this video is just for the mosaic. This small bag was made using Panda yarns. It's 100% cotton and it's Canadian owned, and I like supporting local, so that is why I picked this one here. I used a 3.5mm hook. My finished bag, the body of the bag, is about 6 inches square or 15 centimeters. The first color used is also the background color. That's this pink color. And I used 73 yards, which is about 67 meters. I do list the grams and ounces in the pattern as well, but if you're not using this exact yarn, 100% cotton fingering weight yarn, then how much it weighs could be much different. When you're using yardage, whether you use an acrylic yarn or a cotton yarn, the length of yarn that you use should be the same. For the contrasting color, the paw, I used 55 yards or 50 meters. I also have used yarn on the strap. This is a Tunisian knit stitch. I made it 5 stitches wide, and from top of the bag to the shoulder is about 16 inches, which means if you go all the way around, it's 32 inches. This strap used 47 yards or 43 meters of yarn. When I move on to the larger bag, I use a 5mm hook for the worsted weight yarn. If you don't have the same tension, you may need a different hook. The body of the bag is 10.5 inches by 9 inches or 27 centimeters by 23 centimeters. You'll need a lot more yarn when it comes to using worsted weight yarn. Once again, the main color is the first color used, the background color here. And whether you want that to be blue or white or whatever colors you're using, you're going to need 140 yards of the main color and 105 yards of the contrasting color when you use worsted weight yarn. So that's much more yardage than when you're using the fingering weight. And to translate that to meters, it's 128 meters for the background color and 96 meters for the paw. My strap though, whether I use a small bag or a large bag, the top of the bag to my shoulder is about the same. So it took many more stitches, many more rows for the fingering weight yarn, but this strap is once again approximately 16. I got about 16.5 inches, so it's 33 inches from end around to end. And I only needed 42 yards for this worsted weight strap because it took a lot less repeats to get the same length of yarn. So let's get started. This is my preferred method of doing the foundation row because my yarn changes color. If I was to do the whole bag in a tube and then go back to join the bottom, I would be using the wrong color and it would be noticeable. So I am going to make my foundation chain the same width as the chart. My chart is 37 stitches, so this is 37 chains. And now I'm going to do, still continuing as row 0, the single crochets. And it's going to have a single crochet on this side of the chain, and then I'll keep working and I won't cut my yarn and I'll go on this side of the chain as well. And that'll start the tube motion. This was 37 chains here, so this loop on my hook doesn't count as anything. And if I was to start single crocheting right now, if I go into here, what happens is that it kind of pulls that yarn just bigger. This loop is only in place because of this. So we're going to do one chain. We can make it kind of tight. It's just sort of there to lock the yarn in place. And now we're going to do single crochets using one loop on this side of the chain all the way across. And if you're counting, it'll be the same width as your chart. Okay, so this is 36 and 37. If you're very new at crocheting, you may wonder about this little knot. Make sure that you're not crocheting into the knot. So that is basically the front of the bag. And because my chart is 37 stitches wide, if I'm making it in the round, I can make it 37 stitches wide. And now to get the other side of the chart, I'm just going to flip this, and this is going to become that chain that we had done at the bottom is also going to be the chain that I'm going to work into for this side of the bag. So I just kind of move this, the knot out of the way here. And I'm going to go into this same spot. You can see this is where my chain went into. So that's the same spot that I'm going to go into, now working on this other side of the bag. Now, naturally this has fallen onto that side, which is fine. That'll be the inside of my bag. I'll actually weave that in after. I don't like a long tail. But now that it's inside of the bag, it's one of those things that some people choose to ignore. So you can see here, this is the 2 strings. I know I have 4 strings in each of my string, but this is the 2 that have not been worked into. The chain is at the bottom here, and there will be 2 loops that don't have anything worked into them. It makes that V. You can go through both, or you can pick one. It's up to you what you prefer. I don't really feel like it makes a difference with my tension and everything, and I find it easier to go through 2. So that's what I do. I just go through 2. And you just go all the way back. If you are counting, it's going to be 37 stitches back once again, because we have the same number of chains to work into. And I will then show you how we join the stitches together. So it's very important to count your stitches because you want to make sure that your foundation row has the right number so that subsequent rows will have the right number. You want to make sure that you have 37 on this side and 37 on that side. So this one here, so it's 36. I need to do my 37th. And I finish the stitch here, and then I like to do a sort of invisible join. It's not completely invisible, nothing ever is, but I go into the back loop of the next stitch, and that's where I will grab my next color. So slip stitch through the back loop and the finishing loop that's on your hook from the previous stitch, and tighten it a little bit. And then this is the one, this spot that we just joined into, that's also the first spot for our stitches. So now that we're using the contrasting color, we have 37 single crochets in the back loop to do. This is the first back loop that we're going to use. So single crochet here, and all the way around, of course, every stitch one for one, because we're not increasing. This is not like a flat piece where you have to put extra stitches in the corners or anything. There are no corners. We're just working like a tube, so when you get to the what looks like a corner, one stitch to one stitch, and it's gonna start working like this instead of being flat. I'm just about finished round 1, and I wanted to make sure we look at these final stitches here. This pink one that we can tighten disappears, so that is not a stitch that we're going to work into. The last stitch is this one. I'll put my final single crochet in the back loop only here. I've tightened that pink so you can't really see it. It doesn't count. That means we are done this round, and we're ready to do our pretend invisible join into the back loop of the first stitch, where we're going to switch colors. And if you are always moving them the same way, you'll get a nice twist up the inside. So we're going to go slipping through both loops, and this brown one here, you can tighten that one up. It won't count as anything, it kind of disappears. And now round 2, using our main color, which for me is the pink, it starts with a double crochet. So if we were doing a single crochet, it would be back into this spot that we just joined in. For the double crochet, we're going to skip that and go down. And this is a little tricky because of the joins. So if you kind of go a few steps away, you can see that these ones line up, this one would line up. So the stitch, it looks like it's facing the side over here. That's the one we're actually going to use. So we drop it down, we do our double crochet, and again it's just one stitch for one stitch. We're not adding stitches anywhere. And when we come back around, I know that this round also ends with a double crochet, so you'll be using this loop here. And my trick is that when I do the double crochet, to keep this really close, I actually go through this loop and I go through the loop we just went through, and then I pull my yarns through. So I can show you that. We'll go through that as well, but for now, round 2 is going to have 8 double crochets. So we're going to use these front loops. We're not adding stitches, no 2 stitches in one loop or anything. So this was the first one. The second one's over here, and you can see that my stitches are kind of pulling because this is not a flat piece. It's supposed to be a tube, and the tube will actually go this direction. But right now, the stitches are just kind of pulling the wrong angles. So if you feel like things are weird, it's because they are. While I'm crocheting, sometimes it helps to put them up standing this way, but really this is the outside. This is the pretty side of the bag. So we're going to make sure we're not using the stitches more than once. And I'm not actually doing every stitch with you. I just wanted to show you some of those tips. This has a really noisy thing. Let's move that out of the way. So you can see that naturally, because only at this beginning when there's no tube structure, it has pulled itself actually inside out here to get that tube shape. So when I'm crocheting, I'll pop it back the other way. And when we come now, I have a single crochet next. I want to make sure that things are lined up because we don't want to put it in the wrong spot. So this would have been the next front if we were doing a double crochet. So we're going to line it up, and this will be the single crochet spot in the back loop. So things do kind of lean when you get this pull on the corner. So that's why we just want to keep track of that. And then you keep going, and I'll show you that join again. So I'm just finishing round 2. It's starting to curl up on itself and make that tube shape. The last 2 stitches here are both double crochets. So I want to show my tip for keeping this side tight, just like this side will be, because there's no joins in this side. So this double crochet, we're gonna put them in. So this is my final one, and this is where I have yarned over, and I'm gonna go in here. But in order to keep it tight, I'm also going to go into that first one, just at the bottom there. And then I pretend like the bottom of this one and the bottom of this one are the same place. So that's normally how we would go through. Then we finish our double crochet. And then we are going to join it. This first double crochet at the top here, I go through the back loop. And this is where I grab the other color. Now my tail is still in the way because we're just new at this, but I'll weave that in later. So this one, we're going to grab the other color, slip it together, meaning going through both. And then we can tighten this pink one, but it'll probably loosen up until we get around to the next round again. And that keeps these things just a little bit closer so that it doesn't look weird on the two opposite ends. So now we're going to be starting round 3 using the contrasting color. And the first stitch has to be a single crochet. Whenever there's double crochets down there, we know we have to do single crochet next. And it's a single crochet in the back loop, the same spot that we just joined. So you can see that this is where it's going through. We're going to pull that loop up and single crochet there. This pink one is going to get in the way. So if you hold it tight, you can actually get through there. When you don't hold it tight, it kind of gets in the way and it gets stuck on that hook. So that's single crochet 1, and then we would go to the next, single crochet 2. I wanted to show when we get to the end of this row where it's just single crochets around and we're joining, you can see that this pink, where's my yarn? Here it is. So this is the last stitch that I'm working into. That pink loop here, when I pull on the yarn, it tightens it up and it pulls it, kind of makes it disappear. And this is still, we're going to use the back loop for joining. And we're going to pick up the next one. And we slip it right through and then tighten this one. And that's when we're ready for the next round. Now, if you've been doing this a few rows, so I'm a little bit farther into it now, you can see that on this side of the bag, because I've just gone round and round, it looks just like stitches. And this side, if you look very carefully, you can sort of tell that that's where the join is, but it's mostly invisible. And I did notice while I was crocheting that it sometimes can be a little bit tricky to see where the stitch is when you're about to do another double crochet, the drop double crochets. So I'm holding this one a little bit tighter. It snugs things in right in there. And this first stitch here is going to be a double crochet. So this is the stitch we would have gone into, and you can see this is right there, that tiny little pink, that's the back loop that we had gone into the row before. And the front loop is actually down here. It's like this. This loop has been kind of stretched open. So when we're going to do our next double crochet, or like the first double crochet of this round, we yarn over and we drop it way down here. So you can see these are the stitches, they're kind of in line. But the front loop here is way down here because it's been kind of pulled. So we have to go way down there. It's kind of on its side. And that's the front loop. Once we work into it, it pulls things back up so that they are lined up, just like all the other stitches. So now you can see they're kind of all in a line. So that is, I guess, one of those tricky things that I want to make sure you're aware of. Of course, when I get around to the end again, I'm going to go into this and I'm going to go into this loop, both of them, because that keeps it snug so it looks nice. So that's my trick. Stay tuned for the next video where we will make the strap and finish this bag off. Thanks for joining my crochet along. Have a great day, guys. Like and subscribe to my channel. Yay!